Welcome to Talking Targaryen. Tonight we're talking about House of the Dragon Episode 7 titled Driftmark. This is an instant take. We just watched the episode, so these are our raw, immediate reactions to it. I don't even know if they liked the episode or not yet. We literally have not even talked about it. There will, of course, be spoilers through Episode 7, but nothing from any future episodes. We don't watch the next time on, and none of us have read Fire and Blood. With that, I'm Gil.
I'm Adam.
I'm Daniel.
Alon.
Let's get into it.
I was at risk of hearing the next time on because I was in the bathroom and no one turned the TV off. Or not the bathroom, the kitchen, and I could hear it playing. And I tried to just be like, la, 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 but it wasn't good enough. So then I turned the ventilation on the, above the stove.
Quickly punctured your eardrums.
Adam, while you were sitting on the couch, I said, turn it off so you can hear the next episode. I
didn't want to lean over and grab the remote. It would have hurt my back.
Well,
so anyway, I made the vent as loud as I could. So I made the vent as loud as I could so I wouldn't have to hear it.
all right, although this is all riveting, let's go to you, Daniel. Yeah. What did you think of tonight's episode?
I have very mixed feelings because I had basically decided that I hated the show once they killed Laenor. And then once they revealed that they didn't kill Laenor, I just don't really know how to feel. I just feel very kind of like, I feel like a little annoyed right now.
You're processing.
I felt like I got a little toyed with.
So much stuff is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
in such a rush. Like, this is what the end of Game of Thrones felt like.
Yeah, it felt like that. It felt like season 8, but in the last 3 episodes.
Now I understand why in this episode wasn't even guilty of it, but the series overall is guilty of hopping from distant location to distant location, which is something that early Game of Thrones never did. In fact, like for one person to get from one city to another was like an entire season of travel. Now in this case, I get it because they have dragons. So even if you can logically explain it, it's like has this
very choppy, very quick feeling
to it. Yeah.
I'm curious though. So if we didn't have those last 5 minutes, would you have had mixed feelings, Daniel?
I still think I would. It just feels like we're moving so quickly, and I just feel like I'm losing a grasp on the show and on like the characters.
Daniel losing his grip on reality is not news. I'm actually surprised to hear all this. I was a fan of the episode.
My thing wasn't. That's not my only feelings about it. It's just on the note of, so much stuff happening and it feeling kind of rushed. It made me think about that. But there's a lot to like too.
Yeah. I think I probably did like a lot of the rest of the episode, but it just gave me mixed. Like him claiming Vagar was like really cool.
Yeah.
And that whole conflict with the kids, I thought was awesome. And and the scene where everyone's confronting each other in that throne room, or I don't know if it was the throne room, but in Viserys yelling at everybody to get along, that was actually pretty awesome. I love that.
Yeah, Owen, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I like the episode. I still think it takes a little getting used to the new Rhaenyra and Alicent. Yeah. It's still kind of weird. I still feel like they could have probably aged up the other actors, but at this point, I guess there's no point in even talking about it anymore. We just have to accept it. I think
basically everyone looks the same except for those two.
Yeah, and
that is
and
weird.
Viserys, I mean, you even mentioned it. I noticed it too. He looks younger than he did in the last episode.
I know.
Maybe it's because the crown was covering some of his hair. I don't know, but I don't know. It's kind of weird. But I liked it more than the last episode.
6 seasons in, we're gonna be like, I missed those actresses from the first 5 episodes. I like the episode overall. I do think the last few minutes gave me a little bit of whiplash. And part of me was watching Daemon and Rhaenyra get married. I'm like, yeah, a couple scumbags getting married.
Yeah.
Like, okay, they didn't kill Laenor. They did kill someone though.
Yeah. You're like, oh, that's so nice of them not to kill Laenor, but
poor staff.
Yeah, they just killed somebody, and it's weird. When it's
feel good about it.
You know how it's frustrating when you're in a show and like you don't know what the main character's up to, and so you see them doing things, but it makes you feel disconnected. Like this was a situation where I'm watching the marriage in their new wedding in the context of like, wow, she just killed her husband so that she could now marry her uncle, and I'm just looking at them thinking like, what scumbags? Yeah. Well, and then it's not true, but the feeling stays.
Yeah, the feeling stays, and also they hatched the plan, executed the plan, had a little twist at the end, and got married all literally in a span of 5 minutes, maybe less.
Yeah, I definitely think the last 5 minutes of the episode was too much. And because this is the instant take, that is the thought in our heads right as we enter into the stream. Everything you just said, where it was like, it's a little too late for a twist now. Like if you're going to squeeze it all in, just do it.
Yeah.
But I will say the reason why I was a fan of the episode overall, again, with the exception of maybe these last few minutes, is that last episode very much felt like a pilot. Even in the behind the scenes, they were saying it felt like doing a second pilot. And I think it suffered from the thing pilots often suffer from, which is trying to introduce you to too many characters. Even though we knew some of the characters already, we were being reintroduced to them. And it felt like we skipped around a lot. We didn't spend enough time with any one storyline for me to get invested in it. Here, it felt like they pumped the brakes a bit. There were a handful of scenes in the episode that were pretty lengthy. You can almost break the episode down into a few key sequences. The funeral, Aemon stealing the dragon, the fight, the throne room argument, Alicent and Daemon together, the two of them getting married. Last episode, I think if you were to do it, it would be so many things. And so I got to feel things in each of those scenes. Like where I didn't feel much watching Lena take her own life last episode because we hardly knew her. Here we got to spend time with characters we know mourning the loss. So I got to feel the loss this episode. Aemon stealing the dragon, very cool scene. Except for the one part where they have him go behind the mountain.
Yeah.
But wait, he pops
Suspense.
back up.
Yeah.
I don't think they wanted us to believe it was going to crash, but it's just I've seen that so many times. It just triggers that part of your brain of like, I know.
I liked the moment of realization where he lost an eye, but we gained a dragon. Like that, he matured from being this like dumb little boy to like that. That's something a future king might say.
Yeah.
Like in the stories, like in the history, when they write about his life, that's the kind of thing they'll mention.
Yeah, but
The boy who traded his eye for a dragon.
He really didn't need to lose his eye to claim that dragon. He definitely could have de-escalated that argument.
But yeah, he's an idiot.
Yeah, he's not. He's not quite there yet.
He's just finding the silver lining.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's a cool. It makes for a really cool story, and he grew up over the course of that evening, and was able to put things into perspective and say something mature that actually de-escalated the situation.
Yeah, it's. I wish he said it earlier.
Yeah.
Before people started cutting each other, but he is a child, and to lose an eye, to get any kind of wound, and to then have that kind of vision afterward is it's very impressive.
And also to go from basically his peak moment in life to one of the probably most traumatizing things that could have happened to him, all very close together. Like it was a cool that was like a cool little story that they told us.
Yeah, that was well done. And I thought what followed, all the kids fighting each other, very uncomfortable. Because as much as there are a lot of characters on the show who are all evil, or you're never quite sure who's good and who's not, who do I care about, these are children. Yeah. So at the very least, you could say none of them are outright corrupt yet. And it's every time Aemon picked up that rock, I was like, put that rock down. Yeah. And then when he took the knife out, I was like, oh my God.
This is why I miss the Starks. Like, honorable children, people who all they care about is doing the right thing, even if it kills them.
Speaking of which, that's why I feel the person I feel the worst for is Viserys, because he literally just wants everyone just to get along. He just wants peace, and he's lost control of his family.
The poor guy is at the point where he's just demanding that everybody get along. It's an order from your king.
Yeah,
it's pretty hopeless.
I saw somebody in the chat call him spineless, and at one point in the episode, you really see him like laying down.
I was going to say, like, his spine might actually fall out of him soon.
He literally doesn't look like he has a spine. But I mean, you're kind of with him, where you're like, everyone get along.
But he's got nothing to back it up. Like, at minimum,
and
it has nothing to do with the gender. It has to do with authority.
Yeah.
In this world, the way people are treated, the way kings treat other people, at minimum, he should have smacked Alicent. At most, he should put her to death for this.
Yeah, I actually
she committed treason.
Adam
She
said
literally
this.
commited treason, and he goes, "Don't say that."
Don't say that on the live stream.
Yeah.
No, but if it was her, let's say it was his son who was doing it, right? Or let's say Damon looks like his son at this point. Let's say Damon was the one spreading these rumors.
Right.
Same exact thing.
Yeah.
That demands physical retribution in this world where might makes right.
Yeah, at minimum, his current strategy of just doing nothing and saying over and over again, "Get along, we're family." Yeah. It's like, okay, Michael Blue.
Alicent
It was good to see him get pissed off at least and raise his voice.
Alicent stole the knife from the king and then cut the princess and the heir. I really
treason.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna reach a boiling point.
In one of the previous episodes, Viserys was complaining. He's like, I was never tested. You know, and like now
you're
he's
being
being
tested.
tested, and his eyes aren't open.
He's like,
No,
this
no,
doesn't
not
count.
this test.
Again,
that's the thing, he doesn't
just
see
letting
this.
things happen naturally instead of taking control.
Because family is his blind spot, so he's not seeing it as a real test because it's like he wants a test that he can actually confront, and this one it's beyond him.
He wants a test where it's there's the enemy,
Yeah.
go kill them.
He wants World War II, where it's like obvious.
I mean, his own brother was giving him like practice exams by messing with him so much in the beginning. He didn't take care of his own brother, so it just escalated to this point.
And now his mind is slipping, right? So there's no chance.
Yeah.
yeah. For people who didn't pick up on it, because I didn't catch it at first.
Yeah, he called Alicent Emma, his ex-wife's name.
Adam.
Which you called Rhaenyra Alicent
Yeah, you
earlier,
did do that.
and I didn't point it out to not interrupt the flow.
My
but I'm
mind
worried.
is going.
I'm worried. You lost a couple fingers there too. So
By the end of this, I'm gonna be spineless.
we're family, damn it.
Daniel, like, prepare some wine for guilt. Help me sleep.
We're gonna need leeches.
Yeah.
By the way, Tracy G2, thank you for the super chat. She says, this episode was straight fire. I assume no pun intended. If they could go to Robert's Rebellion and then John Show, give us the aftermath, and somehow fix the White Walkers, I think they would have fixed season 8. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm all in favor of them breaking kind of canon in the universe to try to tell the story better than they did before.
It's funny. I had a friend who's not watching House of the Dragon text me after the first episode, and I guess there was some kind of game of telephone with that ending where they talk about the prophecy of the Song of Ice and Fire. And he texts me, he's like, is it true that they revealed in the first episode that everything that happened in Game of Thrones with Jon Snow and stuff was just a dream? And I was like, well, yes, it was a dream, but about a thing that actually happened. Is it, so they're saying it's not canon. I'm like, no, as far as I know, it is canon.
It just so happens that everything that really happened in Game of Thrones was dreamt by someone.
Yeah, it was also jumped by someone. But I mean, I would love if these creators can keep up the quality. Putting aside last week's episode and possibly the last few minutes of this episode, they can maintain the quality. Then give them the keys to the kingdom.
What I will say is I would like it to. So far, the show continues to have a feel of just showing me a bunch of stuff that happened.
Yeah.
I don't have that feeling of investment the way I did in Game of Thrones. I still feel like I'm watching a summary, like a succinct, condensed version of history, and I want something more. On a slightly less related note, but with respect to the super chat, I would love to see Robert's Rebellion and see what a young, strong Bobby B was like.
Yeah. There's something I wanted to say.
I was strong then.
What you were saying about feeling like you're watching a history book, you're seeing a summary. When the show isn't working for me, that's what it feels like. That's what last week's episode felt like. But I would say for the most part, it's not feeling that way.
This was the first episode where I felt less like that. It still moved too fast for my taste, but I felt more invested in what's the kid with the dragon now? Aemond. I felt more invested in his story. I find his character development interesting because I went from finding him to be a sympathetic character to being a snot-nosed, one-eyed little, not a bastard.
Yeah.
And I also, I don't know. I'm definitely getting more invested in it. But I'm also at the same time finding more characters even less likable than I did before.
You shouldn't tell them about next week's recasting when you have to.
The recast, I maintain the recasting really hasn't bothered me at all.
Yeah. No, same here. I mean,
the pre-casting, that's the
Pre-casting,
term that I
right.
coined because the adult actors were cast before the child actors.
that's right. Matthew R. said that here. Credit to Matthew R. But you also said it last week. So.
Yeah, pre-casting.
Yeah, exactly. Otto came back. It's kind of funny. He was back.
And he's way more explicitly kind of conniving and evil than he was before.
Well, now he can be, right? Because he no longer has to. Not that he was manipulating Alicent. I don't want to use that word because it's not like he was being sly.
Yeah.
I was saying he wasn't being sly about it.
Why don't you go over and comfort the king?
That's what I'm saying. He was explicitly telling her what to do. So,
without, I don't know, in a way where it was like it left no room for her to question it, and there was enough ambiguity in that request.
True.
To like. He almost allowed her to put the pieces together in her own head to feel the pressure to do something.
Right.
I think it was pretty bad.
He was so proud of her this episode. The way he was smiling, she's like complaining, like I shouldn't have behaved that way, and he just big smile.
She should have been like, "Well, let me tell you what Loris just did like at my request.
Yeah. So let me clarify what I was trying to say is that I think Alicent was on puppet strings, but I think she didn't know why, right? She didn't know what the ultimate goal was. And when I said that he wasn't manipulating her, I just mean it's not like he tricked her into going into Viserys' room. He was giving her
upfront
commands.
about I
But
agree.
the difference now is he can be explicit about why they're doing
Yeah,
it.
he can peel back the curtain now.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is interesting, and it's going to make them a dangerous pair, I think. Anything else we didn't mention on the episode?
Well, Daemon and you brushed upon it, but Daemon and Rhaenyra finally getting officially married. I feel like this was inevitable, and it almost feels like there was a lot of rigmarole to lead up. It took so much for it to finally happen. It's like Ross and Rachel.
Jim and Pam.
Yeah. So I'm glad they finally tore the Band-Aid off. It's too bad that they had to murder some random innocent person in the process. And it does make you want to hate them. But at the same time, think about even the character, like, unfortunately, this is how the world works, and they're actually in danger now. Like, their only way out is either, I guess, either to just completely escape, like pull a Laenor, for example, or to win the Game of Thrones and actually get power. And there's very few ways to do that are bloodless.
What they could have done at least, I mean, we saw last episode, Larys was like, I need some bad people. Just like that, he went and got them.
Get someone
on
a
death
bad
row.
person.
I always think that for like The Ring, where it's like we got to show this tape to somebody, so
Show it to bad people.
Take the curse off of
Yeah.
us. Just find someone on death row because they're all guilty.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's an option. But like one thing it made me think about was Ned Stark in episode 1, and he's like seems to be the most ethical character on the show. Put someone to death who fled the White Walkers.
That's right, yeah.
Because even if his story was true, he still broke an oath and needs to have his head chopped off.
Right.
Is that the right thing to do? Not really. I think
That
like
was
in the
it-
grand scheme of ethics, but in the rules of this world, he had to reinforce the rules. And one of the unwritten rules is you win or you die.
Right.
So from their perspective, it's a little bit, and I'm trying to defend them to make the show more watchable.
Yeah.
Because I want someone to root for.
Right.
And I have been kind of rooting for the two of them. So this is one thing I'm going to try to let slide. Is the murder of an innocent person.
It is. And I know it's not us alone that are feeling it, but I think I mentioned in the last episode, but there was that article trending and a lot of people talking about it where it's like, why even bother? Who cares who ends up on the throne if everyone's evil? And I don't think we're quite there, but definitely I feel that sometimes watching this show.
You can't even like the kids anymore.
Yeah, I know, that was hard to watch.
Yeah.
But
And it also it makes sense because they live in this violent world where they're being raised by these bad people.
yeah, they're just being taught every day that it's all about violence.
Yeah.
Like that is literally their grandfather / father for some of them. His biggest regret is I didn't get to conquer. You know.
I feel the same way.
What about Daemon chuckling during the funeral?
Oh yeah.
Nobody reacted to that.
Did he chuckle at something referencing
Corlys
Rhaenyra's
glanced at him.
kids?
So Corlys's brother was insinuating that Laena's children were pure-born Valyrian,
Okay.
but Rhaenyra's were not.
Okay.
He was saying how Valyrian blood runs thick and it will never thin out.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny that they do such a good job on this show of those little moments that tell you about a character. There was that for Daemon, and then in the same scene, once again, you get Aegon yawning.
Oh yeah, and like he just didn't care. He didn't want to be there.
And staring at some more maids.
That's right.
He was checking out the maids again.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I cannot stand Aegon.
Yeah,
We were all like him once.
that's right. Where were we?
Daniel.
I don't know.
Always staring at the chambermaids around the
Standing
palace.
in the window.
Ew.
So we made sure Daniel's room doesn't have windows.
Speaking of which, should we go through Daniel's bits?
oh yeah,
oh,
Daniel's
God.
bits.
I hate that transition. All right, Daniel's bits. Let's go.
I only have one actually on this. Just
Don't say anything, Alon.
Valyrian steel for the needle that they used to sew up Rhaenyra's wound. I just thought that was really cool. Valyrian steel you can just do anything with. And apparently,
Well, no. They were talking about the knife that cut her.
Yeah.
And you could tell it was Valyrian steel because of all the kind of cool pattern that was on it.
Wow.
I only have one bit and I screwed it up.
Totally
Yeah.
screwed it up. All right, so
Okay.
The
Oh,
needle was
the
just a
Valyrian
needle.
steel cut through clean.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I thought you were saying the needle would, so it wouldn't
No,
infect
the
her.
wound was clean.
Of
The needle
course.
looked terrible. It was way too
Yeah.
thick.
Of course, it was Viserys's blade. Of course, he was carrying Valyrian steel.
right.
Well, I'm sorry. This week's episode of Daniel's Bits is spots.
Daniel's bits went the way of Damon's bits. You know what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying.
Where you can't perform.
What do we think about Loras and Alicent at the end of the episode, where she's just totally on board with him, keeping him in her back pocket?
Well, okay, so I think the events of the prior episode with Loras broke her seal in terms of propensity to violence. Now she didn't do anything and she didn't command anything, but she was complicit in it because like a really righteous, like a Ned Stark, like a righteous to a fault kind of person would have said, basically gotten Loras in trouble for what he did and say that I never wanted this and he needs to be dealt with.
Right.
He's a danger to everyone. She didn't do that. She kept quiet. And so she basically became a violent person, I think, by sanctioning that kind of behavior. So that opened the floodgates. And now it looks like Otto Hightower has been waiting for her to realize that this is a game of life and death and a game of violence. He even called it a game.
Right.
Alicent is about to go full Machiavellian.
He's in the game.
He wasn't in the game. Yeah, I think, and she just recognizes he's going to be useful.
And how interesting that Rhaenyra is not going full Machiavellian, because it is the smarter move to actually kill Laenor. Or you don't pull
Yeah.
a stunt like this.
True, yeah.
Well,
So-
and that's I think they're setting her up to be the one I mean, they've already done it, but like they want us to root for her.
Right.
For Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
Okay.
That said, you do have to wonder if that's going to come back to bite them at some point.
Yeah.
Laenor is going to be alive out there gallivanting around the islands.
That's right. Well, you cut his hair, so that might help.
Yeah. We'll have to keep doing that.
You have to get a Gene Takovic mustache.
Yeah.
I had to get in we've already got one reference, but as many as possible. Any other thoughts in the episode? Anything we didn't already mention, Adam?
Yeah, this was overall, I think, a good episode. It got more buy-in and interest from me. Things finally have started to get there has been some violence on this show, but not between main characters or not even by proxy, really, except in like tourneys and stuff. So to see that the tensions are and the stakes are rising means that's like the addictive thing about the Game of Thrones world. So we're gonna get more of that, and for better or worse, I can feel myself getting kind of sucked into the show.
Yeah. Daniel, how about you? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think the tension continues to rise, so I'm excited about a lot of stuff. Now that I've like recovered from the whiplash of the last 5 minutes by talking it through with you guys, I'm excited about the show again.
Sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I was expecting this to go into kind of like a game of wits between Rhaenyra and Alicent, and now that Alicent actually made a physical move on Rhaenyra, it's gonna be a lot harder. She's made her stance very clear.
Right. I mean, imagine if she could have continued all these years to play the role of the supportive friend. Right. That could have. Rhaenyra didn't really want that strongly to be queen anyway, and if Alicent could have maintained a good relationship between the two of them this whole time, while really in the back of her mind knowing I'm just doing this so that she doesn't challenge my claim.
She should have been.
She
Playing
could have done
4D
that.
chess.
Yeah.
That's what I was expecting, because she was so she was not emotionally manipulative in the first few episodes. She just had very high EQ, knew the right thing to say. So I always assumed that was going to turn into manipulation. It seems like it didn't. Instead, it seems more like she's just been simmering, almost like a cornered animal now.
Yeah.
And as the pressures rise, she doesn't really know exactly what to do, and so she's trying to find her footing now. I
Kind
kept
of,
saying
she feels kind of like late game Cersei from Game of Thrones. Like,
which I saw a lot of people. Cersei was trending last week.
Oh,
on
really?
Twitter. Yeah, I've had the pulse on Twitter these last couple of weeks for some reason. But I kept saying I want to see a frank conversation between Alicent and Rhaenyra and just talk things through. Feel like that ship has sailed now.
yeah.
Most likely.
Yeah. Okay, with that, we have some business to discuss. So usually after the instant take, later in the week, we have a full take where we do the same podcast style thing, but it's a full recap and analysis. This week, that's not going to happen, but in its place, we're instead going to have a tight, scripted, probably 20 to 30 minute video with footage from the show that will do a similar job.
Analysis,
Recap.
predictions.
Maybe some frame by frames. What do you think? Some frame by frames?
Frame by frames.
Yeah, might do some frame by frames.
I don't know that we have the budget for that.
Yeah. So that's coming later in the week, and I would say TBD for future weeks. We might go to a instant take and then explainer video model. Things might shift around. And the reason for that is just because there's a lot we're trying to accomplish at one take right now. And when we do the full take, it ends up taking up a lot of time.
It's a really full take.
Yeah, when we do a full take, we really do a full take. And it's not just for one person, because everybody who comes to the table rewatches the episode. They're doing frame by frames. They're preparing all their notes. So we're trying something a little bit different. But as we try different things, always feel free to provide feedback, and we'll listen to you, especially if you're a patron.
Yes.
So yeah, if you want to support us, check out the Patreon where we do some exclusive content, exclusive videos. Sometimes Adam complains that he feels muzzled on the podcast. We take the muzzle off.
All of the funniest things I say get cut out.
Clearly, we're not muzzling him enough, though.
Though one of the videos we recorded for Patreon was still considered too hot for Patreon.
Which I found out days later that everything I said was never posted.
You're like, what? So then we did a Patreon about that one, which will be posted, I promise. I just forgot.
That's going to be a good one.
Other than that, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for more. Join the Discord. You can see a link in the description if you want to be part of some 24/7 House of the Dragons discourse. Anything else, guys?
If you're listening in the podcast app.
Well, yeah, if you're listening in the podcast app and you want to see this video and you want to see the video coming later in the week, check out the link to our YouTube channel. We will also take that video. We're going to take the audio of it, and it'll be totally listenable. We'll put it on the podcast stream. So if you prefer to listen and you're currently watching, check out the link in the description or search Talking Targaryen on any podcast app. With that, I'm Gil.
I'm Adam.
I'm Daniel.
I'm Alon.
Dracarys!